Hi, my name is Eugene Melmani, and I'm presenting on the deep sea sound from Jessica Abel's Out on the Wire, the storytelling secrets of the new masters of radio. I chose this book because, well, right now I'm like acoustics only major, but I want a double major in radio, so I thought it was fitting. And this book goes over narrative and journalistic radio production, and each chapter is broken into a specific part of the production process, from creating the story to the nuances of the characters' voices. And it's really cool. It's a graphic novel. It's a graphic novel, and personally, I think that's like a great way to talk about sound without using sound, because obviously even like speaking is using sound to speak about sound, and drawing it out I think is a really good way to do that. The chapter I'm talking about, the deep sea sound, it goes over basically all of the sound that's not the characters' voices or the story, all the background, all the sound effects, music, etc. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about is silence and the importance of sound. In radio, journalism, or otherwise, there will be at least one person speaking. You can't have pure silence for too long because that's dead air, so usually there will be sound incorporated to help assist with listening so that it's not so jarring if there is that pause or that moment of silence. A quote from the book is, "Traditionally, sound used in radio journalism is limited to just what the reporter records themselves at the scene or while doing research. They call this ambience or ambi. In live radio or radio-style podcasts, background music can be used to help transition into the next segment of the show. This clip from the mock radio show Welcome to Nightville, which was a really big introduction for me as a kid getting into radio, it demonstrates how background music can help make that clear transition between segments of a show."
This has been Corrections. Still haven't heard from Carlos. The representatives from the University of What It Is arrived.
Background music can also assist with highlighting key moments, such as introductions of guests who are brought onto the show.
You're listening to Radio Lab.
Radio Lab.
From
WNYC.
Yeah.
Rewind. I'll continue. We here report the first large-scale study comparing the prevalence of absolute pitch in two normal populations by means of...
This is Professor Diana Deutsch.
Diana Deutsch. Well, yeah, I'm going to turn down my headphone level. And I'm a professor of psychology at the University of California, San Diego.
Can you still hear me, Diana?
Okay. Hello?
Diana studies sound. How humans perceive sound. She's a scientist, she has a lab, but every so often she will also release CDs.
And in scripted, pre-recorded productions, the sound can be made to accompany what's being said. Sort of like how in animation, you'll get the voiceovers and then you'll animate their mouths moving so that it's like perfectly in time with what the voice actors are saying. I mean, it's basically the same thing, except instead of a visual component, there's an auditory component, which would be like the music, background. In this example, I saw this video like 2 months ago, and the most memorable thing to me was just how well the sound was done and like how it just really kept you in and made you feel like you were learning something. So here's that.
Take a look at the front edge of this scallop. Underwater. Do you see those blue circles? Those are eyes.
Out on the Wire also mentions Radiolab and Snap Judgment for being good at telling stories through sound, which I played a Radiolab clip earlier. Of course, there's an even bigger picture in terms of sound once you start looking into narrative work and narrative radio.
Hello?
Ring up the boys, May, and tell them to meet me at Pine Creek Forks. The Flying Bee payroll's been robbed. Pete Belden's been kidnapped. Tell the boys to ride. Hey, George, where'd you put that ammunition? It's in your desk. Which drawer? The middle one.
I declare, I'll never get these dishes done. Looks like a storm coming up, too.
So, sound effects and Foley. Building a world out of sound in radio is really similar to Foley in film. You're taking items and using them to create sounds that they typically wouldn't be associated with to help tell a story. The dialogue will cue what the world around the character is like. For example, if the character is saying, "Wow, there's no one here," you shouldn't be hearing other characters speaking or sounds of life around them.
Picture it. There's a riverbank in Thailand in the remote part of the jungle. You're in a canoe, slipping down the river. There's no sound of anything, maybe the occasional, exotic jungle bird or something.
So you're in this imaginary canoe with Steve, and in the air all around you are millions of fireflies. And what you see is sort of a randomized starry night effect, because all the fireflies are blinking at different rates, which is what you'd expect. But according to Steve, in this one place, for reasons no scientist can fully explain,
Whoop. 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 With thousands of lights on and then off, all in sync.
In Out on the Wire, they use the example of creating the sound of a soldier. The jangling of the keys is used for the sound of the helmet. The rustling of a pillow is used for the movement of the fabrics in their uniform, and the footsteps that the sound effects producer recorded themselves doing is the sound of the soldier's footsteps. You can find sound effects that have already been made by other people on websites like freesound.org or SoundSnap, and these websites, all of the audio that's uploaded is under Creative Commons license, which means that the original uploaders will not have any association with where their work is being put into, so you don't have to credit any of these people. Sometimes, though, you can't find exactly the sound effect you need on these sort of websites, or it might just be easier to make it yourself than spend all that time in trying to find it. Sound effect making is very laborious, but to those that are passionate about it, hours can go into working on something that might be only heard for a few seconds. When making the sound of the lightsaber in Star Wars, there was a lot of elements that went into creating the sound of the lightsaber. There was this recording of a projectionist booth, and then there was also this recording of a television, and they were sort of 50-50 blended together. And then on top of that, there was even more done with it to express the movement of the lightsabers, which I think is just fascinating.
To achieve this additional sense of movement, I played the sound over a speaker in a room, just the humming sound, the humming and buzzing combined is an endless sound, and then took another microphone and waved it around in the air next to that speaker so that it would come close to the speaker and go away. You could whip it by. And what happens when you do that by recording with a moving microphone is you get a Doppler shift, you get a pitch shift in the sound, and therefore you can produce a very authentic facsimile of a moving sound, and therefore it gave the lightsaber a sense of movement, and it worked well on screen at that point.
Finally, music. Music is a powerful tool and should guide and prepare the viewer into the tone of the next scene, and doing this in a way that isn't cheesy is really difficult. If you want to create a solemn tone to your scene, it might be easy to just put on the sad violin music, but that'll leave your audience with either a sense of distaste and not taking you seriously, or with the sense that you're not taking them seriously, and that you need to present them with really blatant themes for them to understand your work. Music and sound are powerful emotional tools. They put you inside the point of view of a character as strongly as any narrative one could write. Music can represent characters, places, establishments, etc. Ben Bradley talks about how leitmotifs can help us recognize things.
The main uses for leitmotifs are reminding people of characters and events, especially for TV, defining someone's or something's personality and character, and establishing mood and atmosphere and connecting that to something in the film. All of these uses have been integrated into all facets of media, whether it be jingles for ads, or national anthems to represent countries.
Music is an all-knowing, omnipotent force, and it'll begin before an action even begins, and its intent will be evident, but will have the audience wondering what's about to happen. It should create the shift in mood before anything else in a scene does. The placement of music, especially in narrative work, is incredibly deliberate and thought out. The main takeaway that I had after finishing this chapter was just how versatile sound, especially in radio, is. There's a section in the chapter where a producer speaks about creating the sound and the music to accompany a scene of a character sort of going through a rebirth and sort of envisioning blood rushing through the body and the sound of the inside of a womb, which obviously no one really knows what that would sound like. But through sound and music, they were able to express that abstract idea in a much more tangible way. That's all I have. Thank you so much, and yeah.